Hello, testing. 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 Okay. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 2024 monthly update. Go on. No. So this month has been fairly productive in some ways and fairly unproductive in others. Start with things I've done this month. I have resumed work on a film which I started working on in December of last year because I had a dream and it's based on that dream. So you'll hopefully be seeing that in the first few months of next year. I'd like to get it out before April because that's my birthday and I'll be able to show it to people. So that's that. Also, last month, I think I forgot to mention it in last month's update, but I got a record player, so I've actually been listening to the records that I have, which is nice. So there. Next month, plans for next month. I'm taking December off of the gaming channel to focus on the film, and also just because it's going to be Christmas, and I'd like to, spend more time doing Christmas than doing gaming videos. But we'll be back in January. I'm planning on doing some indie game live streams during December, so the gaming channel will not be totally inactive. There won't be any videos uploaded during December, but I will hopefully still do some live streams if I can be bothered, which knowing me probably won't, but we'll find out. Yeah. So that's that. Also, in December, a song is going to be coming out. The second single from Decay Pieces will be coming out. It'll be coming out on Christmas Day. Also on Christmas Day, there'll be a video uploaded to this channel, as there always is on Christmas Day, where I show off the things that I've got as a sort of general collection update kind of thing. And then a couple days after Christmas Day, not Boxing Day, but a couple of days after, I'm going to do a vinyl collection. It's not an update because it's my first one, but I'm going to do a vinyl collection video where I show off what will be 31 albums that I've got, because I've been meaning to do a video for a long time. I've been collecting records for over 2 years now, and I have been intending to do a video talking about them, and I haven't. So I will do that, and then every subsequent year after Christmas, I will do another video showing you all the new ones I've got. So I'm not going to do videos showing off all of the ones that I've already shown off and the new ones. It will just be the new ones. So there'll be 31 shown off in this year's video, and then less, more likely maybe. But then again, I've gotten about 20 records this year, so that could, But, we'll find out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've also started writing a script for another film talk. I've gotten a few ideas for them and a few scripts that are partially formed, but I've started properly writing the script for one of them. And that one's about the zombie films, with the Lucio Fulci one first and then onwards from there. But also talking about how it led up to that with Dawn of the Dead and all that, which is all stuff that's known anyway, but I intend to sort of look at all the films. I haven't watched all the films yet, so I'm going to have to do quite a bit of research for that, which is why these videos take so long to do, is because I can't be bothered, really. They used to be unscripted, and so I could do them a lot more often, but they weren't as good. The only good one I've really done was the South Park one. That's because I didn't write a word for word script, but I wrote like a bullet point script. And that's probably a better, because this one that I'm writing at the moment, it's a proper word for word script, but I'll probably just write the word for word script and then condense it into just a bullet point script, because that means I can still, if an idea pops into my head, I can still stray off the beaten path and talk about it. And I can always edit it out if it ends up not making any sense. But yeah, because I'd like to do more film talk videos, but it's just very difficult to do them when you have a brain that is as sort of elastic as mine, because you try to stretch it in one direction towards a certain idea, but then the second you let go, it springs back in a completely different direction, and suddenly I can't concentrate on that thing, I have to do all this. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be focusing on the film, mainly. But yeah, so there's 3 videos planned for December. The song, which will be on the Moid channel, obviously, and then 2 on this channel. May very well do something else on this channel if something pops up that I have to talk about. And like I said, I'm planning on doing videos on the gaming live streams on the gaming channel. So that's plans for next month. Things I've watched this month. Now, I've watched a lot of stuff this month. Basically what I did is I found the Wikipedia page listing dystopian films and just took a few notes of ones that sounded interesting and watched a few of them. So I'll just go through them in the order that I watched them. I started with The Trial from 1962, which is quite possibly the best film I've watched this month. But I'm not sure, there's a few that are quite good. But this one is an Orson Welles film, and the only other Orson Welles film I've seen was Citizen Kane, because it's, you know, one of the most famous films of all time, you kind of have to watch it, which, it was alright, and there is some great cinematography, obviously, but the plot wasn't all that interesting to me. This was a lot more my style. I really enjoyed The Trial. It's in 1.66 to 1, which is one of my favourite aspect ratios. Clockwork Orange is also in it. I just like it because it's just a tiny bit taller than, 1.85. It's just a bit taller, so it's very good for framing buildings and environments and things like that, which this film does a lot of. And it uses... I'm thinking of doing another... this is another film talk idea that's popped up, is talking about 1.66, because I think it's one of the underrated aspect ratios, and this film uses it perfectly. And the strange thing is, immediately after I watched the film, I came downstairs to talk to my mum, and she was watching a modern film on television that was also in 1.66, and I watched it for a bit, and I realised these people don't know how to use the aspect ratio. They clearly just filmed it in 16:9 and then just put the little black bars on the side of the frame. They didn't shoot it in, with 1.66 in mind. They obviously just slapped it on in post because they thought it'd make them look a bit arty, Whereas Orson Welles obviously actually knew what he was doing, as did Stanley Kubrick and various other people who've used it. Andrei Tarkovsky's used it. But yeah, it was really good. It's about Anthony Perkins in it, who obviously played Norman Bates in Psycho. And it's about him. He plays a guy called Joseph Kerr, and he sort of is arrested for a crime that they don't tell him what he's committed. They don't tell him what he's done. And so it's kind of Brazilish in that sense. But it's very interesting, quite surreal as well, which meant it took me quite a long time to actually start enjoying the film. When I first watched it, I got about halfway in and wasn't really understanding it, and then as soon as I realised, it's a surrealist, then I enjoyed. So the second half I enjoyed a lot more, because Wikipedia doesn't say it's a surrealist film. Wikipedia just says drama, and it's not a drama. Well, it is. I suppose it is a drama, but it's a surrealist drama. So I was expecting something more coherent, and that is not what it is. So if you're going into it, expect surrealism. Then I watched The Quiet Earth from 1985. This is a New Zealandic film, whatever. And it is kind of an 80s version of The Last Man on Earth. Which means there's one of those films from every decade. There's The Last Man on Earth in the 60s, The Omega Man in the 70s, and then this in the 80s. It's not quite the same plot. It's not an adaptation of that book, but it's definitely inspired by it. Because it's three people rather than just the one person in those films. Or two people really, isn't it? And it has a different plot, and it's more explained, kind of. In those other films, it's just kind of, you know, you're kind of already in the midst of it. You start watching the film, and that character is already aware that he's the last man on Earth, and he's going around doing his thing. Whereas in this, he wakes up and, you know, he just figures out it. And it was pretty good, but I think I definitely put it below The Last Man on Earth and The Omega Man. The Omega Man is, I think, the best of the three. Then The Last Man on Earth, then this, I'd say. But it's still fairly good. And of course, it's different to those. So if you like that kind of thing, if you like Last Man on Earth type stories, I would recommend it. Then I watched Fahrenheit 451 from 1966, directed by Francois Truffaut. I don't know who directed The Quiet Earth, because it's not a famous director, so I don't know. But Fahrenheit 451 was directed by Francois Truffaut, as Julie Christie in it, who's in Don't Look Now. Which is obviously, she's very good in that. She's kind of wooden in this. Or she's kind of like, I don't know about wooden, but very 60s acting. Like it's, you know. And the acting, it kind of puts me off the film, really. Like the plot is great, because it's based on what I presume is a great novel. I haven't read it. I'll read it at some point. But so the plot is very interesting. It's just kind of the film, all the parts of it that make it a film are the bits that kind of let me down. Like, there's not great cinematography. It's kind of shot like a television special or something, or like a television show. So it's not very, which is kind of cruel to say to television, because a lot of television shows are shot really well, but it's not really, cinematography isn't really used. They just seem to point the camera in whatever direction was necessary to capture what was going on, but they didn't really take any care in arranging, like blocking the actors or having any interesting angles or any interesting. It's just not a visually interesting film, which is a shame, because it's a very interesting story. And I thought, like, if they made that around the same time they made the 1984 film with John Hurt, it would have been very interesting. But then I realised it was made in 1966. There's plenty of interesting films that were made in 1966. Like, Seconds was made in 1966. So there are good-looking films. So it makes me think that maybe, I don't know who was doing the cinematography on the film, but they obviously just weren't very good. And I know Francois Truffaut is like considered one of the greatest directors of all time, so maybe that's more for his. I really don't see it from this film. It's the only film I've seen of his. I don't know how it's rated in his filmography. I don't know if it's considered one of his best films or one of his worst. But it, you know, if Fahrenheit 451 is a good example of his directing, then he obviously isn't all that good. I can only assume it's a particularly bad film from him, because I don't think he'd be considered one of the greatest directors of all time if this was his regular standard, you know? But anyway, that was that. It was alright, but not fantastic. I very much liked the guy the main character though, the guy who played Montag, Werner something. I can't remember his last name, German dude, or Austrian dude. That kind of area. He was pretty good in it. Still fairly wooden, but it kind of fit his character, because he's meant to be. He's one of the baddies at the start, of the film, and then he becomes a goodie as the film goes along, and so he's part of the system, and so it makes sense that he's kind of rigid and wooden because he's part of the system. So like, I don't know if that was a purposeful choice or he just wasn't a fantastic actor, but it works with his character. Then I watched The Last Battle from 1983. This is a French post-apocalyptic film. This is one of the most interesting films I've watched this month, along with The Trial, because it's shot in black and white, anamorphic, which is a fairly rare combination. It's not totally unheard of. The Haunting was shot like that. The Elephant Man was shot like that. But it's a fairly rare. You don't see that many black and white films in anamorphic. And it looks very, very good. But the thing that really makes it interesting is that apart from one scene, and that one scene only contains 2 words, there is no dialogue in the entire film. It's set in a world like, it's not really explained. I like that it's not explained because it kind of leaves it up to your imagination. Some event has occurred on Earth that has rendered human beings incapable of speaking. And there's only one scene, and again, this is another thing I might do a video talking about, so I don't know if I should talk about it now. And of course, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. So, but basically, for like 99.9% of the film, there's no dialogue whatsoever. And so it feels very Eraserhead-like. There is, of course, dialogue in Eraserhead, but it's very minor. And most of the film is just Henry walking around this environment, and that's what this feels like. And of course, you don't even realise it's a French film until, well, I suppose the opening credits have very French names, so it's kind of obvious. But that's really, really good. I really enjoyed The Last Battle. Then, that's slightly complicated, because this next film I only watched the first half of, but I wanted to, normally I only list films here that I completed, that I finished, but I left it listed here just kind of as a warning to stop anyone else wasting their time on it. It's a film called Zero Population Growth, or just ZPG. The actual film is just called ZPG, but it stands for Zero Population Growth, from 1972. It has some proper actors in it. It has Oliver Reed in it, and it has, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who he played, the guy behind the shop counter in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, he was in an episode of Doctor Who. He, a proper actor. There has proper actors in it, but it's so boring. There's no plot. I mean, it's a set in an interesting. This is the thing about science fiction. It's really easy to create an interesting world. I mean, I know this myself. I've come up with some very interesting ideas, but then when I try to write a story around it, it's a load of crap. So I can't blame them. But the thing is, I don't then try to make it into a film. These people made a film, and it's a very bad film. It's set in a world where basically there's a ban on having children. The world is totally overpopulated. You can't move for people, and so they ban having children, right? And you have to just live with if you want a child, you have to adopt a robot child and stuff like that. And it's about this couple, Oliver Reed and another woman, Oliver Reed and a woman who I don't know, who they want a real child, and so they have a real child. I didn't actually get to the child being born or anything that happened after that, because I stopped watching halfway through the film. But it's so bad. I mean, it doesn't help that the version I watched isn't a fantastic quality. Because it's obviously not a particularly well-known film. So it hasn't really been preserved. So it's the really crap quality copy. But even a crap quality copy, you can still tell that the cinematography is crap. So it's crap visually. The acting is completely wooden. Even Oliver Reed, who's meant to be a good actor. Well, I say meant to be a good actor. I know he's a good actor. I've seen him in good things. He was in I think it's Time Bandits. No, he's in some Terry Gilliam film. It's either Time Bandits or The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I think it's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. He's good in that. And I've seen him good in other things. But he's crap in this. So I can only assume it's like the director who's just crap. And, you know, and whoever's doing the cinematography is crap. So it's just, and it's boring. Like, and it's not me being impatient because Andrei Tarkovsky has 3-hour films that I can watch in one sitting. So the fact that I could only make it to 40 minutes in this says a lot more about this than it says about me. I am not impatient. This film is just boring. Immensely boring. So I only kept it there just to talk about how crap it is and warn you not to watch it. Because it's up to you. Freedom and all that. So there. Then we talk about something that, of course, I'd been watching. I start watching this particular program on the first day. And I watched like 2 episodes a day. One in the morning, one at night. And it is My Little Pony, my favourite television programme, Friendship is Magic Series 5, which was broadcast in 2015. I can't remember what happened in this series. I know the villain... The first story was actually very interesting, because it's quite appropriate, because I was watching dystopian films throughout the whole thing, and the first story, which is a 2-parter, is quite a dystopian thing. It's about this town where they've taken their special talents away, and it's about, like, it's essentially communism, really. Which is, you know, quite a brave topic for a children's television program in 2015 to tackle. They didn't call it communism, obviously, but that's kind of fairly obvious what that was all about. And it's kind of like a dictatorship, like a small dictatorship, just over a little town, but still, it's very interesting. And the rest of the series was quite good as well. I mean, obviously, I'm still watching it, so it's obviously not dreadful. Thing is, they don't really have a story arc over the season. They'll just have the first part of the season and the last part of the season linked together, and then all the stories in between are standalone. But this season especially had some of the best episodes of the show I've seen so far. I think most people seem to agree. The stuff I've read, most people seem to agree that season 5 are some of the best. So there's loads of these. Slice of Life, of course, because that talks about all the background characters. Mending Fences, which is about a friend of Twilight's who she kind of left behind when she moved, and how that affected her life. And that's very interesting, and it's very sort of realistically done. And you're not used to that from children's television. I mean, I know animation went through a bit of a change during this year, and it became a lot more focused on trying to tell more realistic stories, even though it's about magical ponies, obviously. But apart from that little, thing, The Princess's Dream of Magic Sheep, Crusaders of the Lost Mark. I mean, there's loads of great stuff in this. But yeah. So there's some, but particularly those two. I mean, these two back to back as well. Mending Fences and The Princess's Dream of a Magic Sheep, whatever. They're quite like serious subject matter, and the fact that they were back to back was quite a brave choice, I felt. And also, this series has the first song that I actually like, because it's kind of a musical series, but most of the songs are pretty crap. But there's one in Crusaders of the Lost Mark called The Pony I Want to Be, which is actually quite a nice song. As far as children's music is concerned, of course, I won't be listening to it alongside the Beatles, but it's not a bad song. Then I watched a series that I don't know how I hadn't heard about before. It's a show called Believe Nothing. It was broadcast. There was one series of 6 episodes in 2002, and it stars my boy Rick Mayall, who is I'm sure anyone who knows me, even in the slightest, knows is my favourite human being who's ever existed. Not just my favourite comedian, my favourite human. And of course, as always, he's fantastic. I discovered it through the bloopers. I was just recommended the bloopers one day. And I watched them and I was like, I didn't realise Rick Mayall did another studio-based sitcom like that, but he did. And it's fantastic. It's not quite as good as the stuff he did with Ed, but then it wouldn't be, would it? Because it's only half of the duo. But it's written by the same people who wrote The New Statesman. I've seen a couple of episodes of The New Statesman. It's not really my thing. I prefer the more surreal Rick than the more... Because that's a kind of more serious thing. And this is much better, in my opinion. And it's just very funny. It's basically he plays this extremely intelligent, very rich professor who is part of the small group of people who run the world. And it's just very interesting to see it. What am I talking about? Very interesting to see it. It's very funny, is what I mean. And I just enjoyed it a lot. The other two main actors in it are very funny as well. Tim Vine makes a special appearance in the first episode. Or cameo appearance, I suppose is the more appropriate term. And yeah, that's that. And then finally, I watched Dune, the 1984 Dune, which was the final David Lynch film that I hadn't seen yet, and I purposely missed it out on my first viewings of his films because he's kind of disowned it. Because he didn't get a final cut. And so it's not really the film he wanted. And so I purposely missed it out because I didn't want it to pervert my knowledge of what a David Lynch film is, you know? I didn't want to misinform myself. And so I missed it out, but I finally watched it. And it wasn't bad, but I definitely see why I didn't like it, because there's definitely huge chunks missing. You can tell that there was a lot more filmed that isn't in it. It really only kind of feels like half a film, and it is 2 hours long already, so that kind of... But there's so much stuff that isn't explained. I mean, I know it's a very complicated book, and it's quite hard to get into, but I think... Well, obviously, I think they should have just given him final cut. I mean, that would have solved all sorts of issues, wouldn't it? But from what is there, it was very good. The special effects are great. Both the practical effects, like the creatures and the costumes and all that, and the, the visual effects, like the compositing and stuff like that. I mean, it is in the 80s, so you can kind of tell what they did when. But still, it's very, it's very good. And, of course, it is the start of a lot of stuff for David Lynch. He met so many people on this film who he would go on to work with in the future. Of course, he met Carl McLachlan on this film. He met Dean Stockwell on this film. He met Brad Dourif on this film. And I could go on. The guy, I can't remember his name. But he was in Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart. No, not Wild at Heart, you idiot. He was in Twin Peaks and The Straight Story. And he was in Dune. I can't remember his name. But it's the guy who sells him a tractor in The Straight Story. So, I can't remember that. And also, David Lynch has his own cameo in Dune as well, because he plays a character in Twin Peaks and you hear his voice in Inland Empire. But the only time he's on screen in one of his films playing a character is in Dune. It's just a shame he couldn't have had a cameo in one of his better films. So there. And then things I've listened to this month, nothing. Or nothing new, anyway. I've listened to some more of the records, of course. I listened to them all last month, but I've re-listened to a few this month, particularly Abbey Road and Fleetwood Mac 75 are the two I've listened to the most so far, because they're two of the greatest albums of all time. I'm thinking and I'm not sure about this, but I think Fleetwood Mac 75 may be just inching up to taking over Tusk. I'm not sure, because Tusk has always been my favourite Fleetwood Mac album, at least of the Buckingham Nicks era, but I think Fleetwood Mac 75 might just be edging up. I definitely prefer them both to Rumours, because Rumours feels just like a more polished version of Fleetwood Mac 75, and I prefer the more rough version of that. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I've got a thing, you've probably noticed. I should just acknowledge it, really, shouldn't I, rather than ignoring it. I've got a thing there. It's not like a cold sore or anything like that. It's just a spot, but it's in quite an irritating place. All the others are quite irritating as well, but particularly that one. That's why I keep touching it. I've been trying to ignore it the whole time, but I can see it right there. It's like this enormous hole on my face in the picture. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Should just acknowledge it and get it over with. So there. That is all for this month. I hope you guys have had a good November. I hope you have a good December. The next time I'm definitely going to see you is on Christmas Day, because I'm going to upload a video. I'm going to upload the song to the Moid channel, and I'm going to upload a video to this channel talking about the things I've got. But I will very probably see you earlier, because I intend to do some live streams on the gaming channel, so you can look forward to them. And as always, thanks for watching.